this is the time we normally welcome expert columnist, commentator, business and director. There isn't probably anything on a CV that isn't outstanding, including a first-class honours degree from Otago University when that used to mean something. Joining us now, Craig Stobo, on the events of the week. Good morning to you, mate.
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Yes, you did mean something in those days, didn't it, Craig? First-class honours?
Yeah, well, it still does to me. It's still very important. I mentioned the Otago University Business School sponsored event, the Tourism Policy School in Queenstown, again this year, starting today and finishing tomorrow. So we've got 100 guests arriving, the Minister speaking tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to a debate on tourism policy. So yeah, I'm still supporting the university, Michael.
No, good on you. I mean, some of us have had our faith tested in recent years, but I'm glad that you are. You're much better than I am. But then we always know that, Craig. Tell me, go back to the tourism issue, though. What's the issue there? I mean, it seems from this, I'm living, obviously, in the middle of it, but it seems that things are back to almost pre-COVID levels. What's the problems in tourism that needs some policy to resolve them?
Yeah, so you're right around volumes getting back to where they were in 2019. There's a different mix of visitors, but you're right, they're coming back, and so tourism towns are doing well. If you look at the briefing to the incoming minister from the Ministry of Business, Employment, etc., NDIE, they have got some questions that are put in front of the minister, which are as follows. Ensure that visitors contribute to the amenities they use and the costs they create. Ensure the sector can adapt and contribute to the mitigation of climate change. And, we've got processes that you and I have talked about for that, but that sector, the tourism sector, uses a lot of carbon to get here. Support regions to manage congestion, and you've spoken about some of that, particularly in Queenstown, and the infrastructure pressures that tourism creates. I mean, Queenstown doubles in size at peak periods, so how does that infrastructure cope? And then look at the commercial activities on conservation land, which is a reform question. Currently, the Conservation Department, Ministry of Conservation, looks after both the collection of monies and repair and maintenance of traps and huts, etc., but it's also got a conservation objective, and could that be put into a much more commercial footing and widen the number of traps available to the visiting public, and both offshore and domestic public. So there's 4 things that I'd like to talk about at the school. We've got a variety of businesses, policymakers.
Our line's a bit poor with you, and you always give insightful intellectual commentary. I'm going to put you back to Josh, and we're going to try and improve that line. So while that happens, Josh, you've got Craig now. Yeah? You've got Craig now? Yeah? Good. We'll try and improve that line because we do want to hear about that. Listen, just on that, Queenstown, I know, is Queenstown Rotorua, really, aren't they? The sort of jewels in the crown of New Zealand's tourism industry. But Queenstown's got particular problems around infrastructure. They're creating an infrastructure for, on any given day, that at maximum season, they can have 120, 130,000 people there. And they've got ratepayer base of, I think, about 25,000 people. Maybe. So you can understand the fundamental mismatch there. They need an infrastructure to cater for 130, 140,000 people, but they don't have a lot of ratepayers. Craig, I hope that's better. Have we got a bit of line?
That's much better, thank you.
Oh, it
that's
is,
good.
1,000 times. Yeah, that's good. Craig, I was just saying off air then, while we were sorting you out, that Queenstown's problem in many ways is one of infrastructure too. You've got so many people that you need to provide infrastructure for, but so little people to pay for it. I'm stunned that over the last 20 or 30 years, really, the government haven't moved into that area to resolve that issue, because it diminishes the tourism experience.
Yes, Queenstown Lakes District Council a few years ago, pre-lockdown, had a poll for a bed tax. I think 85% of the public voted for it. It went up to through the Minister concerned at that time, Nash, from recollection, and it went nowhere, partly because lockdown happened, so it's moved away. But it's very clear from the briefing to the incoming minister that this topic of contributing or tourists contributing to the amenities they buy and use and the costs they create and managing congestion infrastructure pressure is still an agenda item that's not solved, and volumes are back. It's like we've been sleeping for 4 years and nothing's been done in this area. So we need to create a user charge regime where people pay for the use of these amenities.
Yep. So is that going to be a topic that you're addressing at your tourism school, is it?
Yes. Well, we'll be asking the Minister at the end of the second day answers to those questions, and other questions will come out of the debates that we have under Chatham House rule over the next 24 hours. So I hope so.
Chatham House rules, just to explain that to people, that's when you all sit together and you're free and frank and honest, really honest with each other, but you don't actually quote yourself outside the room. Is that right?
Yeah, there's only one rule, and that is you can't attribute a question or an answer to a person. So you can talk generically about what went on. You can't attribute Q&A to a particular person. That is the only rule. That is the Chatham House rule.
Okay. Does that work for you guys?
Well, that's, it needs to be observed, doesn't it? I mean, if you breach it, you don't get invited back, do you?
No, well, fair enough too. Okay, what else are you addressing at this tourism policy school?
Well, there's the question around local versus central. Destination management plans put out by a number of the regions in the country at a council level, looking at how to improve the visitor experience, how to create some themes between various parts of the experience in their regions. The question on the table is, the destination management planning sort of finished, there's no more funding. Should it be centralised again? Why do we have a local authority marketing organisations that might be different to Tourism New Zealand that markets globally? If you look at Switzerland, Swiss tourism does both together. So if you are a visiting couple from Tokyo and you want to organise a wedding, facilities that are put in place, the facilitation for the photographer, the flowers, the venue, the transport, the post-honeymoon experience, whatever it is, it's almost the complete package. Do we think like that in an integrated way? Well, we don't. And one of the questions is, should we devolve more of that to the regions? What is the value that Tourism New Zealand provides? It gets $111 million annually. How do you know that we're getting a good payback on that? Are we targeting the right customers? Is it a margin question or a volume question?
Okay. The thing that I always, just listening to you now, and my sort of eyes are glazing over in terms of talking about government, the Minister of Tourism is it Matt Ducey?
That's correct.
Right.
Yep.
He's not highly ranked. It's not John Key taking over the responsibility. I don't know that I see Matt Ducey, I could be wrong, and I could be misjudging the man, but as necessarily one of the bright luminary stars of the front bench. Does that indicate that tourism might not be receiving the precedence that might otherwise in previous governments?
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that in the sense that tourism was our number one export earner ahead of dairy prior to 2019. It employs 8% of the workforce or so. They may not be in the highest paid jobs, but they're still important to the customer experience. It's important for smaller parts, smaller regions of New Zealand where you've got tourists coming through, spending money in those areas that they wouldn't get from domestic visitors. So it's actually incredibly important, and it's one of the reasons why the Tourism Policy School was set up, to give it more prominence and to think more carefully. The difficulty is, of course, it's spread across lots of other portfolios: transport, small business, hospitality, gaming. It crosses a number of other portfolios. So when you speak about tourism, you're really talking about people moving across different portfolio platforms. So how you work with other departments, including conservation, is really important. You can't talk to one without talking to the others. So it's quite complicated.
I guess the other issue that is interesting to me is New Zealand's seen. I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, Craig. New Zealand's, I hear from customer experiences, being seen as quite an expensive place to visit. I guess the one thing is you've got to fly there, particularly if you come from Europe or the United States of America. And then two, people are a bit surprised by the cost of the New Zealand experience. Is that something you're hearing at all?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, it's some destinations find it a bit easier to come here. For the Americans, it's a bit easier at that exchange rate. For Australians, it's not so cheap relative to Southeast Asia. The European market, of course, is driven by airfares and the cost of airfare, but with all the competition on the American-New Zealand travel routes, it's relatively cheap to come here compared to other destinations. So you're seeing a different mix of tourists coming here, but when they arrive, they certainly talk about the costs for meals, transport, rental cars, etc. It's not a cheap destination, but the volumes are picking up, so it tells you that spending things differently, travelling maybe longer and across, different price points. So it's not unattractive. It's still attracting people, which is good news.